Hi everyone, my name is Melissa van Dijk, and in today's video I want to talk about something I've been thinking about a lot recently. And the more I think about it, the more it honestly bothers me. Because when it comes to acne and breakouts, the conversation almost always seems to go in the same direction. And when I say acne, I also mean breakouts in general. Because some people hear the word acne and think, well, I don't really have acne, I just get hormonal breakouts. Or I only break out on my chin. Or I only get breakouts on my back or chest. But no matter what you call it, the question is still the same. Why does your skin keep becoming breakout prone in the first place? But instead of asking that, you're usually told that it comes down to genetics, hormones, oil, bacteria, and clogged pores. And once acne and breakouts are explained that way, the next step becomes very predictable. You start asking, what product should I use? What prescription should I try? What ingredient you need? Or what treatment should come next? And for a long time I also thought this was just how acne had to be approached. You have breakouts, so you treat the breakouts. You try something for 8 to 12 weeks, and if it doesn't work, you try something else. And if that doesn't work, you try something stronger. But at some point I started asking myself why this is considered so normal. Why is it normal to keep moving someone from one treatment to the next? Why is it treated as responsible when the answer is another cream, another prescription, another product, or another routine? But when the conversation shifts to diet, the tone suddenly becomes completely different. Then you hear things like, there's not enough evidence, don't overstate it, diet is not proven, there's no one acne diet. And I think what you often hear from that is not this topic needs better long-term research. You hear diet does not really matter. And once you hear that, you stop looking. You stop looking at what you eat every day. You stop looking at how much salt you actually consume. You stop looking at how much free sugar you are eating. You stop looking at what may be hiding in normal meals, homemade meals, sauces, seasonings, spreads, snacks, drinks, restaurant food, and even foods that are marketed as healthy. And instead, you go back to the same question. What product do I need? And that is the part that started to feel really strange to me. Because diet is not some tiny separate thing. Diet is the daily environment your body is living in. So why is it treated like a side conversation? Why is it treated like something you should barely talk about unless the evidence is perfect? While at the same time it is completely normal to say, try this treatment, wait 8 to 12 weeks, and if it doesn't work, try another one. When you really think about it, that is such a strange double standard. The treatment side gets patience, it gets trial and error, it gets escalation, it gets authority. But diet apparently has to prove itself perfectly before you even encourage it to take it seriously. What? And that is where for me this stops looking like just an acne advice problem and starts looking like a system problem. Because the acne industry is very good at offering the next step. There's always another cleanser, another active ingredient, another prescription, another antibiotic, another hormonal treatment, another routine, another product. There's something to sell, there's something to prescribe, there's something to review after 8 to 12 weeks. But if the answer is something like reducing salt, reducing free sugars and eating more whole foods, that is much harder to package. You cannot sell that as easily. You cannot turn it into a simple skincare product. You cannot control it in the same way. And I think this is one reason why diet stays in the background. Not because it is irrelevant, but because it does not fit neatly into the treatment model. And this is where dermatologists become part of the issue. They are working inside a system that already has a very specific way of looking at acne and breakouts. If the problem is framed mainly as genetics, hormones, oil, bacteria, and clogged pores, then the question is already narrowed down. What should we prescribe? What should we apply? What treatment comes next? And online this becomes even more simplified, because online acne advice is usually not a real investigation. It is general advice. It is the accepted framework repeated in a shorter, safer, more digestible way. So you hear the same type of message again and again. Acne is not caused by dirty skin, acne is not your fault, diet is not proven, use evidence-based treatments. And that message becomes incomplete very quickly, because when someone with authority keeps saying diet is not proven, you probably don't walk away thinking, I should investigate my own diet pattern carefully over time. You walk away thinking, okay, maybe food is not the issue. And then you stop looking at the one thing you are doing every single day, eating. And that is what feels so wrong to me, because for me, the biggest shift did not happen when I added another skincare product. It happened when I stopped treating diet like a side issue. And more specifically, when I finally looked seriously at salt. Now, this is where I also want to be very clear about sugar, because sugar is still a serious issue in today's diet, especially free sugars. And I do think reducing free sugars matters, not just for your skin, but also for your overall diet, your teeth, your blood sugar, your cravings, and your health in general. So I'm not saying sugar is harmless. I'm not saying you should eat as much sugar as you want. And I'm definitely not saying free sugars are a good thing. But for my acne and breakout pattern specifically, sugar was not the root issue. When my salt intake was low, sugar did not trigger the same acne pattern. I could eat sweet foods without suddenly getting those deep, inflamed, pressure-filled breakouts. So for my skin, sugar was not the thing setting off the pattern. Salt was. And that distinction matters. Because if I had only focused on sugar, I would have missed the thing that was actually driving my breakouts. And that was the part I missed for the longest time. I had already changed so many things before this. I looked at sugar, skincare, food quality, and all the usual advice. But salt was the last thing I changed. And once I reduced salt, the whole pattern finally made sense. For me, salt overconsumption was the thing setting the whole pattern off. And that is why I think this whole conversation matters. Because if you're struggling with acne, breakouts, chin breakouts, back acne, chest acne, or skin that keeps reacting, I do not think the only question should be, what should I put on my skin? The question should also be, what am I eating every day? How much salt am I actually eating? How much free sugar am I eating? Could these things be hidden in foods I think are normal, homemade, or even healthy? And what happens if I reduce them consistently and eat more whole foods? Because diet should not be treated like a weak footnote when it's the daily environment your skin is living in. And you should not have to wait until the industry finds a way to turn that into another product before you are allowed to take it seriously. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.